You're live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Planning Commission. Today is Tuesday, December 14th, 2021. This meeting is now called to order. So first I'll request staff to call the roll for commissioners who are present and not.
Yes. Commissioner Harris.
Here.
Commissioner Haveman.
Here.
Commissioner Lubomirski.
Here.
Commissioner Mercado is absent. Commissioner Saudi.
Here.
Vice Chair Pravitali is absent. And Chair Samouthi.
I am here. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the order of the agenda. Are there any changes to the order of the agenda? The order may only be changed by majority vote of the commissioners here. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to meeting procedures. So due to the COVID-19 shelter-in-place order, we've had to establish new ways of conducting our public meetings. I'd like to ask staff to address how public comment will work this evening.
Yes, thank you, Chair Samouthi. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone other than the commissioners to turn their cameras off, which it looks like you have, until it is your turn to present. This meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube viewers. Live to YouTube. Viewers are welcome to attend by telephone by calling 669-900-9128 and entering the meeting ID, which is 872-0645-4435 and the pound sign. Or you may watch directly through Zoom using the link on the agenda, which you can find on the Planning Commission webpage. If you are participating by telephone tonight and wish to provide comments, please press *9 when the chair opens the public comment period. Once you hear a notification that the host is inviting you to speak, please press *6 to unmute yourself. You will have up to 3 minutes to speak, and I'll repeat those instructions. If you are on Zoom or not on the phone, just use the raise the hand icon at the bottom of the screen. If you submitted comments prior to the meeting by email or letter, it has been forwarded to the Planning Commission. Closed captioning is available for this meeting, and the link is on YouTube. Thank you.
Thanks. So let me now describe the meeting procedures. We'll begin with the staff report. Then we will hear from the applicant. Applicants will have a maximum of 10 minutes to speak. Members of the public will then be invited to speak. People on the conference call can speak when they've received the notification that they've been asked to unmute themselves. Given the length of today's meeting, I know Leslie had mentioned 3 minutes. We'll do 2 minutes for speaking just because of the number of agenda items that we have. Commission will have the opportunity to ask questions of staff, applicant, or public after each segment. We will close the public hearing and bring the matter back to the commission for discussion and action if necessary. Anyone with an urgent communication on a topic not on the agenda may address the commission at this time.
So if you wish to speak on something that is not on the agenda and you are dialing in, please press *9. Or if you're not dialing in, use the raise the hand icon at the bottom of the screen. And this is if you wish to speak on something that is not on the agenda. And I see no one wishing to speak.
Okay. In that case, we'll move now to the consent calendar, which has 3 items. First is minutes from October 26, 2021, our Planning Commission meeting at that time. So the 3 items from that are approval of the San Rafael Commission meeting minutes for October 26th. Recommended action is to approve as submitted. Second item is the agenda item for 800 Mission Avenue project. This is the Aegis Living San Rafael Senior Living Center. The resolution for the Planning Commission amending the effective date of Planning Commission Resolution number 21-08. Again, the recommended action is to adopt the corrected resolution. And then number 3 is Ross Terrace Street, which is 39 and 41 Ross Street. This is a request for a lot line adjustment for property line adjustment. And the recommended action for this is to continue the item off calendar. Over to you, Leslie.
Yes, so if anyone wishes to comment from the public by about any of the items that are on the consent calendar, which are the minutes from the last meeting of October 26th, a revised corrected resolution for 800 Mission Street, or a continuation for the Ross Terrace Street project. Please raise your hand now by using the raise a hand icon, or press *9 if you're phoning in. And I will give it a second. I see no hands raised.
Okay. Are there any commission comments or edits? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion. And I just ask to announce your name prior to the motion or the second.
Commissioner Lubmersky to approve the consent calendar.
Commissioner Haveman, I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on this? Nope. All right. Leslie, do you mind conducting roll call, please?
Would love to. Commissioner Harris. Aye. Commissioner Haveman.
Aye.
Commissioner Lubmersky.
Yes.
Commissioner Saudi.
Yes.
And Chair Samudzi.
Yes. Okay, we'll now move on to tonight's 2 items for public hearing. First item is the Aldersley Retirement Community. This is 326 and 308 Mission Avenue. This is a scoping meeting for notice of preparation of an environmental impact report to assess impacts of the Aldersley Retirement Community project. The project proposes phased improvements on the Aldersley campus, including demolition and renovation of existing buildings and construction of new buildings. The recommended action here is to accept public comment and to direct staff to prepare a draft EIR. At this point, I will ask a staff report for this project.
Yeah, and I would like to introduce Janie Alsop. She is one of our contract planners from Alsop Planning and is the project manager for the Aldersley Retirement Community.
Thank you for that introduction, Leslie. I have a PowerPoint here, so I will share my screen and let's hope we can get this keyed up pretty quickly. Can everyone hear me okay and see my screen? Thumbs up? Yep, great, fantastic. Okay, as the chair mentioned, this is a scoping meeting for the Aldersley Retirement Community Environmental Impact Report. The focus of the meeting will be the environmental review of the project, but I would like to give a brief overview of the project. I have slides that are all included either in the staff report itself or in the architectural drawings and packet that has been submitted by the applicant and provided online for public review. So let's start with the project site. The site is located at 326 and 308 Mission Avenue, outlined here in red. The 326 Mission Avenue address is for the larger parcel. 308 Mission Avenue is for a also part of the Aldersley campus, but it is currently a single family home that is being used as office space. The project is located in the Montecito Happy Valley neighborhood, and it is just north of the recently adopted Montecito commercial sub area and the downtown precise plan, which is outlined here in blue. This slide shows the existing site plan, the existing footprints of the buildings on the site. The hatched areas show existing buildings that are proposed to be demolished as part of the proposed project. Existing uses on the Aldersley campus include residential care facility and assisted living memory care. There are 35 beds currently. It also includes extended care and convalescent and skilled nursing beds, currently at 20 beds. and also residential independent living units, currently at 55 beds. The requested applications that have been submitted to the City of San Rafael include a zoning amendment that is required in order to revise the approved development plan. And there is an approved plan development and development plan that was approved back in 2002 when the Rosenborg building was being applied for and subsequently constructed. In addition, there is a use permit application that is required in order to amend the master use permit that was approved back in 2002, and also an environmental and design review permit for the phased development of the Aldersley campus, all of the new proposed development. So getting into what the project is proposing, the project proposes phased improvements that include demolition and renovation of existing buildings and construction of new buildings. And I've just outlined in the bullet items here the main components of what is being proposed. Again, this information is in the staff report and is also available online. But the key components of what is being proposed is a 4-level independent living building along Mission Avenue. It's referred to as the Mission Avenue IL, or independent living. An independent living building on the western portion of the site, referred to as the West Campus IL. A new service building along Bell Avenue. And the project site runs from Mission Avenue to Bell Avenue, so it has what we call double frontage. But all of the proposed access, except for deliveries and pedestrian access, are proposed to remain on Mission Avenue. There would also be new outdoor spaces created, including a memory care garden, activity lawn, a rose terrace, all to provide better accessibility to all Aldersley residents for the outdoor space. On-site parking would increase from 48 spaces to 56 spaces at build out. So that would be at the end of phase 4. And what this amounts to in terms of the types of uses on the site, there are no new uses that would be introduced, but there would end up being 14 additional independent living units. So that would be an increase from the existing 55 units to 69 units. There's no change in the proposed assisted living or memory care beds. It would remain at 35. And similarly, the skilled nursing beds would remain at 20. However, there would be different locations for these beds on the Aldersley campus with this proposed project. I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly, but I think they help to illustrate just the phasing of the project. Again, there are 4 phases, and the applicant has suggested that the phasing would occur over a period of 10 years. The shaded area down on Mission Avenue is phase 1. So there's phase 1A, 1B, and 1C. Phase 2 is primarily this new service building and the Kronborg renovation that would be closer to the Bell Avenue frontage. Phase 3 is the renovation of the Christianborg building. And phase 4 is the proposed West Campus independent living. This shows a bird's eye view of the illustrative master plan. So this would include all 4 phases as proposed. In addition, there's a very robust landscape plan that is proposed, including quite a few new trees along the Mission Avenue frontage. And this illustrates some of the bioretention areas and plantings areas along the Mission Avenue independent living building. This is a building elevation of the Mission Avenue independent living building. So it's the south elevation that fronts along Mission Avenue, and the more shaded buildings in the background are the other buildings that would be on the site. These are building elevations. What I'm going to show the next couple of slides are elevations of proposed buildings from the Bell Avenue frontage. So this is the proposed new service building, and that is proposed near where the existing delivery area is currently. This is the Christianborg building, the West Campus Independent Living, lower profile because it's up at a higher elevation on the site. These are elevations that are really more interior to the project site, but they are included and provided. This provides an interesting perspective showing the difference in the grade from Mission Avenue. It goes up, I believe, about 40 to 50 feet up to Bell Avenue. So these are site sections that show the difference in grade and some of the challenges there with keeping things accessible. These are additional cross sections of buildings that show the relationship to both Bell Avenue, Mission Avenue, and the adjacent properties across Mission Avenue. This is a perspective view from Mission Avenue. It's at what would be the proposed new east driveway, which is near Union Street. It's a little bit just east of the existing driveway that goes into the Kronberg building. There's a proposed shift to that location of the entry. So this, what you see here in the front is the Mission Avenue Independent Living Building. And this is another perspective, and this is more from the Mary Street intersection with Mission Avenue. So it shows the main new entrance. And this is essentially where the existing main entrance is proposed. It's a circular or more horseshoe shaped area with parking spaces. So getting back focused to the purpose of tonight's meeting, after going through all of the project details and project plans, when I set that aside for just a moment and really make sure that we're clear on the scope of tonight's meeting. So the scoping meeting is an opportunity for the Planning Commission, other agencies, and the public to provide oral comments on the initial study that's been prepared and on the scope of issues and alternatives that are to be addressed in the EIR. So how we got to this point, I'll spend a little bit of time. I know it looks like a lot of words. We determined that the project was subject to CEQA early on in the process. We were also aware that the site, the campus itself, was eligible as a historic district. So that implied certain impacts, especially since buildings were proposed to be demolished that warranted full review in the initial study. The initial study checklist, which I'm sure you've seen before in other projects, is posted on the project website, and it goes through a variety of environmental topics. And what the topics that you see here listed below are topics that, based on the conclusions of the initial study that was prepared, there would be no impact or a less than significant impact from the project. So there is no mitigation recommended and no further analysis is warranted in the draft EIR based on the conclusions in the initial study. So as you're familiar with these checklists, there's an extensive list of questions that are answered with sources provided. And again, that's all been made available on the project, the city's project website. So the list is pretty extensive of the topics that do not warrant mitigation or further analysis in the draft EIR. So these essentially have been addressed, we feel, adequately in the staff EIR, and these topics would not be included in the draft initial study, and would not be included in the draft EIR. There's another category of projects that would be less than significant with mitigation incorporated. So in the initial study, there are mitigation measures that are recommended for these 5 topics: air quality, biological resources, geology and soils, noise, and tribal cultural resources. some of these are more related to the construction impacts as opposed to the operational impacts. There is one significant impact that we are aware of that would require analysis in an EIR, and that is related to the historic resources, which is a subcomponent of the cultural resources section in the CEQA checklist. As I mentioned previously, the campus has been determined to be eligible for as a historic district. It's not listed yet on any type of state or federal register, nor is it currently listed on any local historic listing. However, it has been determined to be eligible. And under CEQA, if a project is eligible as a historic resource, that it is treated as one under CEQA. So because there are demolition of buildings and landscape features that are considered contributors to the eligible historic district, and there are no mitigation measures or alternatives that have been determined to this date that have been proposed that would avoid or reduce the project impacts on these historic resources to less than significant, an EIR is required under CEQA. And based on the conclusions of the initial study, again, no other impacts rise to the level of a significant impact. All other impacts either are less than significant, no impact, or can be mitigated to less than significant. So based on where we are now, and again, this will be more finalized after the notice of preparation and the 30-day public review period, but based on where we are now, we don't anticipate other topics needing to be addressed in the EIR. So there would be reference back to the analysis in the initial study for all of the other impacts. We would also be including a mitigation monitoring and reporting program that tracks and provides a reporting plan and an implementation plan for the mitigation measures that are identified both in the initial study and any mitigation measures that would also be included in the EIR. So the notice of preparation, it's a step in the CEQA process for when an EIR is to be prepared. The notice of preparation is sent out to other agencies, to property owners within 300 feet, and it's also published in the IJ. It was published on November 22nd, and there's a 30-day review. It's really intended to announce to other agencies and to the public commencement of the EIR process and to solicit comments. There's a 30-day public review, as I mentioned, and public comments will be accepted until Tuesday, December 22nd. Next steps following the close of the 30-day NOP comment period, we will get busy reviewing the comments received, as well as any comments received this evening at this meeting, and consider whether there are any revisions to the initial study or to the scope of the EIR, including project alternatives in accordance with CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. Preparation of the draft EIR will begin. It actually has begun, but certainly we're going to wait until we see the comments from this initial 30-day review period. Once the draft EIR is completed, there will be another public comment period. So that's the notice of availability will be released, and there will be a 45-day public review for the draft environmental impact report, at which time we will also have another hearing before the Planning Commission to receive comments on the draft EIR. After the draft EIR, the step after that would be consideration of the final EIR and the project merits. They may be at the same or subsequent hearings. And following the 45-day review, the consultant will respond to comments raised during the review period. So there will be written comments or written responses to comments that have been received on the draft EIR. And the final EIR, along with the project merits, will be considered by the Planning Commission and the City Council at noticed public hearings. And I should note that this project does require a zoning amendment. So it's basically to amend the approved plan development, and that requires city council action. So the planning commission's action will be in the form of a recommendation to the city council. The recommended action this evening is to accept public comment on the notice of preparation, the initial study, and the scope of issues to be addressed in the EIR, and to direct staff to prepare a draft environmental impact report, taking into consideration verbal and written comments received during the scoping period. That concludes my presentation. Since this is really more of a meeting focused on process and the environmental review, the applicant is in attendance, but is not going to be making a presentation. Both staff and the project applicant, we're going to be more in a listening mode at this point than a presentation mode, but certainly if there are any questions about the proposed project or any part of the process that requires some clarification, I'm very happy to answer now or after public comment. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Leslie, are there other comments from staff or from the applicant for this?
No, that is it. So if you have any questions for the applicant, if you want to, or for the project planner, this would be a good time, and then we can open the public hearing for comment on the scoping session, for the scoping session.
All right, and as per usual, let's, in terms of commissioners, let's reserve questions for just points of clarification at this point. And then after public comment, we can then jump into discussion. So with that in mind, I'll let it be a free for all. Just speak up if you have a question for the applicant or for staff.
This is Commissioner Harris. I have a question. This might be outside of the scope of this meeting, but I'm just wondering where the residents will be during these renovations.
Would you like for me to respond?
Yeah, either you or applicant, whoever.
Okay, I'm gonna, okay.
I'm letting the applicant, he should be allowed to talk to Peter. Yeah, thank you, Peter.
Yeah, this is Peter Lynn. I'm a consultant for Aldersley. Yeah, the drawdown will take some time for the residents. We're preparing plans to notify family over time, as we've got some time until the actual construction happens. And so there's going to be time to draw down and move residents to other units that might fit their needs right now. But the goal is over time, as vacancies open, we would be able to move those units over. And the first phase, there's only, let's see, the first phase, there are 12 units that will be affected, and they will get moved if during the time that we're about to start construction, they're needing to be moved at that time. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
But just for clarity, I mean, it's gonna be a while until we're ready to start construction. So.
Are there any more commissioner questions?
It sounds like not. So we can I'll open this up for a public hearing, and yeah, let's open up public comments.
Okay. Jeannie, can you stop sharing?
Yes.
That'd be great. Thank you. That's fine. So if you're wishing to speak on this item, which is the scoping meeting for the proposed EIR for the Aldersley retirement community. It's not about the merits of the project, but what the EIR should study. Please raise your hand using the raise your hand icon. And if you are phoning in, please press *9 and you will get 2 minutes. And our first speaker is Ray Don Hirsch.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
You can? I'm sorry. I think I'm in the wrong meeting. I'm trying to get to this Los Galmos Apartments meeting. Does that come next?
That will come next. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Timber and Derek Kavasian.
This is Derek Kavasian. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we own the 3-unit property at 418 420 Bell that's directly across from the back of the Aldersley property. And in our opinion, the review of the Aldersley project thus far has failed to address a number of important concerns. Bell Avenue is a narrow road with no sidewalks and no parking and two-way traffic and a blind crest of hill at Bell and Ridge. Adjacent to our property to the east is a daycare facility. Due to the coming and going from the daycare center and the two-way traffic on Bell, the lack of sidewalks and frequent pedestrians, many of them students from San Rafael High, there is already a very congested situation on Bell, which is further exacerbated on occasion by service trucks for Aldersley. When there is more than one service truck, which is quite common, one of them ends up partially obstructing the upper driveway to our property. Bell Avenue already represents a tenuous situation for both cars and pedestrians due to the factors mentioned above. It simply cannot absorb more traffic, parking, or activity. But this project is phased in such a way that phases 2, 3, and 4 can only be built via access from Bell, which is going to create huge long-term disruptions, obstructions, and/or street closures. And we're not talking about a few weeks. This project will go on for years. And yet, even though 3 of the 4 phases of the project as planned will only be accessible from Bell Avenue and will have a major detrimental impact on the residents that live there and through traffic, the initial study is conspicuously silent on this important topic. This omission must be corrected. We feel that the work should be phased in such a way that all construction access will come from the Mission Avenue side. Our second concern is that a 10-year project in an existing residential neighborhood is just too much to ask the community to endure. This project should be either scaled back or the construction timeline limited to a reasonable amount of time. Going toward design,
Derek,
and site function and use.
Derek, your time is up. So if you can wrap up, otherwise I'll cut you off. And I know you've submitted some comments, and if you have more, please do submit to the project planner.
We already submitted them. Okay, one last thing.
Right.
Another concern is the noise of the emergency generator that's being proposed. The existing generator, when operating, is already a major noise problem for our tenants. Where is this new one going to be located, and what kind of noise constraints are going to be required? To sum up, the initial study, in our opinion, treats Bell Avenue like a back alley, which exists just to serve the needs of Aldersley, and ignores the adverse impact this project will have on the folks who live on Bell. Our tenants, the daycare center, and the rest of the residents of Bell deserve better. We think all the above concerns should be addressed in the review of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. If there is anyone else wishing to speak on this topic, which is the scoping session for the Aldersley retirement community. So this is Timber and Derek again. So I think maybe it's Timber. Hold on, I'm having trouble here. There we go.
There we go. It is Timber.
Yeah.
Yes. signed in as one person.
Yes, that's fine. I am going to keep you to 2 minutes though.
Okay, that is fine. So I wanted to talk a little bit. I did submit some comments. We thought it might be email only again. And so that went to the email we did last time. But just to highlight some things to the planning commissioners, good evening. I wanted to talk a little bit about the public notice and the open process as part of the study. We personally have missed 2 of the 3 notifications leading up to design review board. And again, we weren't notified of this meeting either. So combined with the inability to hold in-person meetings and only submit comments in this way without a face-to-face, I just feel like it really dilutes the public process and participation is greatly affected. But one area of inquiry would be, I mean, how many people really have been reached and really know about the Aldersley project before statements are made that nobody is concerned? So the other piece of that is the minimum required public notice sign that sits on the Aldersley driveway front entrance mission. It's completely inadequate towards successfully informing public interest for such a huge project. That sign, you can only see it from one direction if you're traveling west. It's not even a 2-sided sign. And I strongly feel and urge you to exercise some discretion that is afforded. And my letter actually quotes the municipal code. But a large sign should be on both Mission Avenue and Bell Avenue. Even the project planner, Janie, mentioned frontage over and over again, speaking in the project description about Bell. And there is just no signage alerting anyone that that project is more than, you know, a bathroom remodel notification. So I hope and I encourage you to direct staff and or the applicant that more signage would be required, and that discretion is afforded, and I hope that you'll exercise that. So in the initial study, what's absent to me and really needs you to direct study.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. I said thank you, Timber. And if you have further comments, please submit them in writing to the project planner. If there's anyone else wishing to speak on this item, again, use the raise the hand icon or *9 if you are phoning in. And I see no more members of the public wishing to speak.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. So at this time, hearing no other points of public opinion, we'll close the public hearing and we'll bring the discussion back to our commissioners. So at this point, what we can do is open this up to a broader discussion. So keep in mind that this is a scoping discussion about sort of focus areas for the environmental impacts review. So with that in mind, we can start with the discussion and then we'll wrap up overall discussion. I'll just call on everybody one by one. So at this point, we can just jump into discussion. Any points that you have, feel free to share them now.
I have a question about the parking traffic. They're adding, this is for the applicant or staff. They're adding 14 units and only 2 parking spots. I mean, do the residents now who are living in those, I think it's 55 units, are they availed? Are they drivers? I mean, how is that going to work out?
We are adding additional parking underneath the building, but yeah, the overall count is correct based on the report. The residents do drive, that they don't frequently drive as much, so they're not, you know, traffic is not an issue. But as far as parking, I mean, currently when there are events, there is depending on the size of the event, but there are times where valet is definitely something that's brought on. But currently there is adequate parking on the site itself, and we're not planning on parking on the street or anything. So it is still being planned to be parked on our site.
But will a traffic study in terms of the number of residents who own cars versus the additional.
Yeah, and there was a parking study and a traffic study that was already conducted.
If I may interject, this is Jamie Alsop. Yes, a traffic study was prepared. It was a traffic and parking study, and it did consider the existing parking demand and the effect on street parking, including employee parking and shift changes and making sure that the impacts to the surrounding neighborhood are minimized. So it's actually a total of, I believe it's 8 spaces that would be added to the project overall. And as Peter Lynn mentioned, during any type of events or times when there is a demand for parking beyond the normal day-to-day operations, it's my understanding that valet parking has been provided, so that again, it's not it's to minimize the impact on that neighborhood, because street parking in that area is very much in demand. So that is something that is addressed in the study, and that traffic study is available online on the project planning page.
Okay, it must have slid by me. In reference to the public comment about access for construction, is what the resident said accurate in terms of all access would be off Bell for construction? I find that hard to believe, but
no, it's not all on Bell. I mean, that's certain the buildings that are on Mission Avenue, and certainly as we want to minimize any kind of impact to anyone. But most of the access is going to be off of Mission. There are some improvements that we are planning to do on Bell that really are to address some of the loading and unloading that's currently happening. And we're trying to actually improve the situation back there. And so it is all part of the plan that there is going to be some access that might need to be needed off of Bell. But we are addressing definitely the loading and unloading off of Bell right now. That's part of the plan of improvements.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I could just add that given the concerns that the Cavasians have expressed, as far as any kind of deliveries of, truck deliveries, operational deliveries, that really is more, I mean, it will be addressed, and it is addressed in the initial study, but in terms of any concerns about saying having 2 trucks trying to deliver at the same time, if it's 2 trucks delivering to Aldersley, those types of conflicts typically are handled as conditions of approval that limit and clearly spell out and require a delivery plan. So I feel as though we would address that as part of the project review, as we did back in 2002, because it was a concern back then, the delivery operations. And it was improved since 2002. And as Mr. Lynn said, the proposal would further improve the operational aspects and deliveries. As far as construction impacts, I do think that we have a copy of the letter that the Cavasians have submitted, and we'll take a closer look at that. And if we need to expand or look at something that was not looked at the level of detail that we think is required, given the concerns that have been addressed, we may require additional information from the applicant on that and fold that into any revisions on the environmental review. Okay. So I feel like that would be the appropriate thing to do under the circumstances. Take a closer look and make sure that we have taken a close look at the construction aspects and the staging area and access that would be needed for each of the 4 phases to ensure that there aren't any severe impediments to access along Bell Avenue, including, of course, public safety, police and fire, that kind of thing. I will
And
say
then-
also, just as part of staff's review of this project from the beginning, and knowing that Bell Avenue is, it's a narrow street. I did check with police and fire to see if they had any concerns about existing situation or proposed, and there were none reported, nor were there any complaints reported that I could determine. But nevertheless, it might be something that is appropriate to take a closer look at.
And I would like just to clarify that the construction is
Could
definitely.
could I interrupt 1 second? I do want to remind folks, I don't mind if we have clarifying questions,
Okay,
but the point of this meeting is on what the EIR, the focus EIR should study, and if there's any inadequacies in the initial study. So this is definitely to answer clarifying questions, but it is for you, if you have questions, for us to follow up with the CEQA document. So answers will be coming as we do further study and present and move forward with the project. So I just want to make sure to know that this is kind of the inception of the project, and we're gathering your questions for us to answer. So thank you.
Got it. Thanks.
Do we have other points of discussion? Okay, if not, so here's what I'll do is I'll run through our list of people. Again, our focus here is just providing guidance on things to focus on for the EIR. So, if you have sort of parting thoughts about focus areas, then, we can leave that with the applicant to digest. So I'll start with Commissioner Harris and then just kind of go down alphabetically through the list.
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Haveman?
Also nothing at this time.
Okay. I think Commissioner Lubomirski?
It's a good project. I hope the scoping is done well. I know it can be kind of dramatic for a neighborhood to have a pretty sizable construction project going on in a year, 10 years, but it's absolutely needed in our community. We need expanded spaces for people like me to hang out in a couple of years. So,
okay. Commissioner Mercado is not here. Commissioner Saudi?
I have no comment at this time.
Okay. Vice Chair Prabhatali is gone. Okay. And yeah, I think no further comments. I think the concerns that have been raised by the community, you've heard them. Do with it as you will. But I think you are on the right track, it sounds like, in terms of identifying issues to assess. So at this point, it sounds like there's no further comment. So what I'll do is request a motion, and the motion here is to accept public comment and to direct staff to prepare a draft environmental impact report. Do I have a motion?
so moved.
How was that,
Commissioner
Commissioner Lubomirski?
Lubomirski, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is Commissioner Haveman. I'll second.
Awesome. Okay. So it sounds like there's no further discussion, right? All right. If not, then I will ask staff to conduct roll call.
Yeah. And I just want to apologize. I didn't want to cut off your comments, but I wanted to make clear this was like gathering your questions for us to analyze. Commissioner Harris. And I? Yes. Yes. Commissioner Haveman.
Yes.
Commissioner Lubomirski.
Yes.
Commissioner Saudi.
Yes.
And Chair Samouthi.
That's a yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thanks. So next agenda item is the neighborhood at Los Gamos. And this is a request for general plan amendment, a zone change, and vesting tentative parcel map, as well as an environmental and design review for a mixed-use project with 192 multifamily residential units, an approximately 5,600 square foot retail grocery store, a 5,000 square foot community center, and 225 at-grade and semi-subterranean parking spaces on a 10.24 acre site located on Los Gamos, north of Oleander Drive. And the recommended action here, there are a few parts here. Adopt resolutions recommending to the City Council, A, adoption of the mitigated negative declaration and MMRP, B, approval of the general plan amendment, C, approval of the zone change, D, approval of the vesting tentative parcel map with conditions, and E, approval of the environmental and design review application with conditions. This time I'll request a staff report.
Yes, and I'm just going to introduce, there he is, Jeff Hamilton, who is our contract planner and the project manager for this project. So we're excited to have him. We also have Sean Kennings, who is our contract CEQA consultant. So I believe Jeff will do the presentation, but just so you're aware that Sean is available for questions as well.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, I hope you can hear me.
I can, yes.
Okay, I'm going to start the slideshow and try to share it. Can you see the slideshow?
No.
Okay, let me try to. I don't see the option to share. Oh, there it is, share screen. Okay, very good. Now, can you see the slideshow?
No.
Okay. Try it again. And now can you see it?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. The requested applications, as noted, are a general plan amendment to change the designation from Hillside Resource Residential to Neighborhood Commercial Mixed Use, a zone change to rezone the property from Planned District Hillside Development Overlay and Residential Hillside Development Overlay to Planned Development District, a vesting tentative parcel map to combine and adjust the boundaries of the existing parcels, an environmental and design review application for development on a site with a major physical improvement, one consisting of more than 3 dwelling units. An initial study with a mitigated negative declaration has been prepared along with the mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program. These documents are attached to your staff report. To provide an overview of the project and the site, the image before you shows the overall site with the apartment buildings labeled 1 through 5. And then in the middle of the site is the mixed use commercial building, recreation area, and community room. Parking is scattered in various portions of the site. It's underneath each of the buildings, as well as some surface parking in the middle of the site. To the south of the buildings is the South Park recreational area, which will be a combination of natural open space, undisturbed, ungraded, and improved open space. Some existing improvements in the area include the office building at 1401 Los Gamos to the east and the YMCA to the northeast. Again, this is 192 apartments, 10% of which will be affordable as low income. The 5,500 square foot market, a 5,000 square foot community center above the market. The project proposes a maximum height of 58 feet, 225 total parking spaces, a combination of at-grade and subterranean. Trash will be stored underneath the buildings and then brought out periodically for pickup. And then the barrels will be, the cans will be put back underneath the buildings. Of the 10.2 acre site, 4.83 is unimproved open space. That means 4.83 is left in its natural condition. 0.34 is going to be improved hillside area in the South Park area, and there's 1.29 acres of improved landscaping on the site. The average slope of the property is 36.9%. Of the 285 trees on the site, 55 are proposed for removal, with 210 new trees proposed to be planted.
Sorry to interrupt. Can we, it looks like you may have a very long screen and we're only seeing a third of the viewing area. It's just appearing very small on our view shares. Any way you can fix that?
I don't know. Let me see.
Well, actually, you know, one thing that I did is if you click on view options and click original size, it changes the dimensions on your screen without Jeff having to do anything.
So I'll start the slideshow again.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you change your view options, does it look better?
Did that work for you, Commissioner Saudi?
No, it just made everything black. I don't see any.
I did view options 50%.
Oh, I did 50%. That works. Thank you. Thanks for that tip.
Okay.
Got it.
All right, Justin, I think you're good.
Okay.
To continue.
Again, the apartment buildings are outlined in red, the commercial building, the mixed-use buildings outlined in yellow, and the South Park area is outlined in green. This is an aerial view of a broader area that shows the project site in the lower left-hand portion of the image. It shows the 101 freeway sort of bisecting the image. To the east is the commercial industrial area that exists across the highway. To the north, you can see the Kaiser Clinic, the YMCA buildings, and then to the south, or just to the east of the site, it's hard to see in this image, but there's the 1401 building. There's an existing traffic barrier across Los Gamos that restricts access through the parking area for 1401. That barrier is not proposed to be changed. There are single-family homes nearby, uphill and to the northwest of the project site. This is a view of the site plan that shows areas that are going to be graded in sort of the light brown. The light green around the brown areas are actually sort of stormwater bioretention areas. This shows the areas to be left unimproved, the total development area, and the improved open space area in the South Park area south of the buildings, and then the approximate location of that access barrier that's going to remain across the driveway serving 1401 Los Gamos. The project is proposing a total of 88,000 cubic yards of grading. 54,000 cubic yards would be exported. This would require 2,000 to 3,000 truck trips to export the dirt from the site. This is a view of the existing condition from across Highway 101 looking to the west that shows the project site and then neighboring buildings in the foreground. This is a view of the proposed South Park area, the recreational area that will be south of the proposed buildings. This shows some of the existing terrain, some of the existing trees. This area is accessed by a bridge across this existing drainage channel. It's sort of a dry or semi running dry creek bed crossing the site, and there's a bridge across this area providing access to the South Park area to paths, some improved recreational features for the benefit of children, and then some paths and seating areas for other folks. This is a view of the central part of the site with the market to the right and community center to the right, and then recreational areas to the left. There's a pergola on top of the building, the commercial and market recreational building combination. There's a pergola up here for shade and for recreational use. There's a lawn and various trellis seating areas to the south of the building. On one of the middle terrace and on the lower terrace, there's seating and a water feature. The total recreational area is about 10,000 square feet. These terraces are accessed by a series of stairways coming in on either side of each of the terrace areas. It's also worth pointing out that there is proposed outdoor seating sort of off of the market building in the very center part of the site. The terraces on south of the building that form part of this recreational area have retaining walls that are up to 16 feet high. Some of that will not be visible as a full height retaining wall because the stairwell system will sort of block it. The applicant is also interested in using some of that wall space either for art, sort of as a mural area, or possibly to have landscaping growing on or trailing down above the wall or growing up from below. The lower retaining wall will be about 14 feet tall. And then there are 2 retaining walls that are about 10 feet tall at the lowest to support the lowest level. This is a rendering looking to the west, sort of from the 101 freeway area, imagining what the project would look like above or the existing buildings and placed into the hillside. One thing that's noted here is that all the proposed buildings are below the ridge line that's beyond and to the west of the site. This is a rendering, an artistic rendering of the view of what the project would look like from the vicinity of the freeway, looking to the west. This is a view, a rendering of what the project would look like, looking up a portion of Los Gamos, sort of in the direction, in the southwesterly direction. This is a view looking up the proposed central access driveway towards the recreational area directly centered on the driveway, and then the market with the pergola above just to the right of the driveway, with the apartment buildings on either side and above and beyond. This is another view of the pergola that also shows some of the recreational amenity that the applicant is proposing to place above the market and in the vicinity of the market. This is a view of one of the types of buildings, residential buildings. There's basically 2 types, a type A and a type B. Each of the buildings is 4 to 5 stories tall. One notable feature that was evaluated by the design review board is the fact that it does have gables that face down the hill. This is generally discouraged by the Hillside design guidelines. However, in this particular case, the design review board did not find them objectionable and thought overall that the buildings generally met the intent of the design guidelines, with some comments which I'll get to later. The overall maximum height will be 58 feet. The applicant is requesting a waiver because the maximum height allowed under the general plan is 30 feet. This waiver is allowed because the applicant can request it because this is an affordable housing project and the applicant has asked for a density bonus. Under state law, he can ask for waivers from development standards in order to make the project feasible and developable. These images of the type B building show the roofline articulation being used, and also the way in the lower right-hand image, how the building mass is broken up so that it follows the hillside a little bit better, and it doesn't just sit as one box on top of the hillside. This is a view of the east and the south portions of the commercial and recreational building. The east front shows the parking below, the market on the middle level, the community center above, and then the recreational area on the roof at the top level with the pergola above. The section to the right shows the terraces, the recreational terraces that are going to be south of the building, and it shows how the building steps back up the hill and helps to follow the contour of the hill. And then it also shows the elevator stairwell tower, which flanks the entrance driveway to the parking below. On the left is a section through, a typical section through an apartment building, which shows the tuck under parking in the dark gray. The habitable space, the living areas are in the orange. The light gray above the dark gray and below the orange is storage area for the use by the residents. This is tucked under and above the behind some of the apartments. There are a series of retaining walls necessary to support the hillside as part of the development of the site, and the section on the right shows a typical section through the hillside that shows the residential building below and then the 2 retaining walls above. These building walls are up to 8 feet tall, but because they're generally directly behind the buildings, they won't be visible from off the site. This is a section through a broader portion of the hillside that shows a section through the community center and market building, and a section through one of the apartment buildings, and it shows the general grade and then the heights of each of the floors and where they are in relation to the grade, and then it shows the location, the approximate location of the property lines above and below the buildings. This is a section through a different portion of the hillside. This section is a little bit through 2 of the southerly buildings, 2 of the apartment buildings, that shows their arrangement on the hillside. And then also it shows their relationship to the office building at 1401 Los Gatos. Some of the project details are that the applicant is proposing 36 studio units. Each of the studios would be 496 square feet with a 72 square foot balcony. 48 1-bedroom units, each 735 square feet with 116 square foot balcony. 90 2-bedroom units ranging in size from 762 to 1,070 square feet, each with 128 square foot balcony. And 18 3-bedroom units, each 1,153 square feet and each with 143 square foot balcony. As I mentioned, there are 285 existing trees on the site, consisting of 256 oak, 21 bay laurel, and 8 other types. Of those trees, 55 are proposed to be removed, including 51 oak, a bay tree, and 3 others. There are 11 trees required to be placed in the parking areas, but the project is going to substantially exceed this and plant a total of 210 new trees on the site, including 55 cathedral live oaks, which are a type of tree that's not native to California, but is, when we evaluated it, it did look like it was a nice street tree type that is well suited to the site and well suited to this environment. Here are images of what the proposed trees would look like, including the cathedral live oak on the left. Here's scrub oak and California black oak that are also proposed as part of the landscaping palette. One of the issues is whether or not the project is consistent with the general plan. In your document, in the staff report, there's a table that lists all of the general plan goals and policies to which the project is consistent. It's an extensive list. I'm only going to highlight a few here. It's consistent in terms of density. The general plan designation proposed allows up to 24 units to the acre, 18.75 are proposed. It's consistent in terms of clustering in that the project does cluster the buildings closer together, which reduces the amount of grading and preserves the majority of the trees and the majority of a significant proportion of the site as ungraded natural area. The commercial component of the project meets the required FAR for the site. It does exceed the allowed height limit, but as I mentioned, the applicant has requested a waiver from this requirement as allowed by state density bonus law. In terms of zoning consistency, the project is it meets the required lot size for a planned development. It does have fewer commercial parking spaces, 12, compared to the 42 required. However, the applicant has requested a concession from the standard, which is also allowed under state density bonus law. The project does provide substantial residential parking and meets state density bonus law, which sort of governs here for the amount of parking that is required. The most that the city can ask for is 246 spaces, and 213 are proposed. In terms of the hillside design guidelines, the project uses clustering and incorporates vertical and horizontal articulation. Grading has been minimized. A substantial portion of the natural features are preserved. There are gables facing downhill, but in general, this actually helps to create sort of enhance the appearance and break up the mass of the building. At least that was the opinion of the design review board. Parking is tucked under the buildings. Usable open space is grouped in substantial areas, including the central commons area, and then in the approximately 1 acre South Park area. The children's play area in both these areas exceed 400 square feet, and each unit has private usable open space. It also helps to preserve the drainage paths that cross the property to the north and south. They are being preserved in part, as I mentioned, by the use of that bridge across the southerly drainage path to provide access to the South Park area. Project is located below the ridge line to the west. It uses a variety of oaks and preserves a substantial proportion of the existing oaks on the site. Each unit has private usable open space, and there is substantial common open space on the site that is easily accessible to the residents. As I mentioned, the project, a mitigated negative declaration has been prepared, an extensive environmental analysis prepared by Sean Kenning, the independent consultant. This was available for review during November. The environmental document determined that there were no unmitigatable impacts and that mitigation measures are proposed for aesthetics, air quality, biology, cultural resources, and tribal cultural resources, geology and soils, and hydrology and water quality. During the comment period, one comment was received from California Department of Fish and Wildlife. They asked that the project and the environmental document be revised to address stream and riparian habitat, loss of trees, burrowing owls, the potential existence of the American badger on the site, roosting bats, and special status plants. The mitigation measures were revised to incorporate the comments from California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and all mitigation measures have been incorporated into the project conditions of approval. In summary, this project proposes some additional housing that the city needs to meet its housing goals, and it proposes that on a challenging site. The project meets the intent of the design guidelines. Grading is minimized. The majority of trees are preserved. Architecture and landscaping are interesting and attractive and incorporate the use of both native species and low water using species. The proposed general plan amendment to neighborhood commercial mixed use and zone change to planned development are appropriate ways to allow a mixed use development with high intensity housing on this hilly site. The project meets the zoning development standards with exceptions noted, and the proposed market will be beneficial to residents and help reduce traffic and air quality impacts. The relief sought by the applicant from height and parking standards is allowed under state density bonus law. I want to briefly mention that this project was reviewed by the Design Review Board on October 5th. The board had comments and asked that the project be revised to address, to provide a darker color palette so that the project would be more in keeping or more muted when viewed in context on the hillside. That they consider ways to break up the mass of those tall retaining walls in the recreation area, possibly by using planting or with texture. That they also consider using more natural materials on the exterior of the buildings, and that the trees that are proposed to be planted try to be placed in more naturalized arrangement and not in very formal rows. All of those comments from the Design Review Board are incorporated as conditions of approval for the project applicant to respond to and address. And prior to issuing building permits, the revised project details would be brought back to the Design Review Board for final confirmation that they agree with these changes. At this point, then, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the resolutions recommending to City Council adoption of the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program, approval of the general plan amendment and zone change, approval of the vesting tentative parcel map with conditions, and approval of the environmental and design review application with conditions. Planning Commission also has the option to recommend approval with modifications to the plans or the conditions of approval. Planning Commission may also continue the hearing to allow the applicant to address any comments or concerns the Commission may raise, or the Planning Commission may recommend that the City Council deny the project. I'm available. That concludes my staff report. I'm available to answer any questions, and Sean Kennings, the environmental consultant, is also available to answer your questions.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I see that the applicant is also going to deliver an oral report, or did what you did, Jeff, cover everything?
No, I'm sure that the applicant wants to also make a presentation.
Okay.
If commissioners have any questions for the project planner or the City consultant, now would be a good time to ask before we turn it over to the applicant too.
I have a question.
Go for it.
I actually was on the design review board at the time this project was presented, and I'm familiar with it. I was in support of the project and still am. The one thing that I have a question on are the trees and the removal of the trees and the replacement of the trees. So looking at the schedule of tree removal and the diameter, and then comparing that to a 24-inch box, you know, for the first at least 10 years, we're not going to see the town of maturity. I don't know what Colin or you think so?
If everyone can mute themselves, besides the speaker, that might be helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, the concern, or just the thing that I'd like to point out to staff and to the other commissioners is that the maturity of the trees shown in the renderings and on the application package do not reflect like a 24-inch box size or even like a 48-inch box size. So I am in support of the project, but I think we prefer to have a rendering of what the project is going to look like for the first 5 years. And if you want to add renderings that show more foliage at that, you know, you can show images that project into 10, 20 years. But, you know, I think we'd all like to see an accurate picture of what the project looks like, especially for the public who doesn't really, the general public who doesn't have really the ability to navigate these kind of drawings and, you know, see in fine print that the box sizes are 24 inches and even what that means.
I have a quick question. Did I notice from your presentation, Jeff, that there will be fewer parking spaces for residents than there are units?
Yes, that's correct. But again, that's largely governed, basically it's governed by, residential parking is basically governed by state density bonus law. And state density bonus law establishes maximum parking ratios. And the project is consistent with those ratios.
So it's consistent to the extent that it's under the maximum.
Yes.
Right, but it's highly likely that if somebody's going to be living out there, they're probably going to need a car.
Possibly, experts in urban planning and transportation planning are speculating about this very topic, about what's the propensity of future homeowners, future residents to own vehicles. I've heard a diversity of opinion, and I don't know that anybody has a real good answer. I can only say that the applicant feels comfortable proposing the parking at these rates. He would be entitled to propose more parking. The city just can't mandate more than what is required under or allowed under state law. But he feels comfortable that this parking arrangement is sufficient to market his project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sounds like no further questions. So we'll jump over to the applicant and their presentation.
Well, good evening, everybody. I think Ross Gearing has control of the sizing on the screen there, so I'll let him increase that up to 50% or some greater number.
Is that not large on everybody's screen?
If you set it to,
you have to set it on your own.
That looks fun.
if you set it to 200%, it reads well for me.
All right, there you go. I'm back now. All right, everybody. We are excited to present the neighborhood at Los Gamos this evening. Given the time constraints, we're going to be quick in our presentation to allow for question and answer period. Tonight, you will hear from Colin Russell, our architect, Shilpa Stove, our world-renowned landscape architect, and briefly from me, Chris Hart, the owner and applicant. The entire team, however, is standing by for any questions. Jumping right in, this is a 10.24 acres along the Highway 101 corridor with personally verified proximity to transit both north and south of the site and significant commercial neighbors along Los Gamos Drive. Most importantly, not a single vehicle trip to or from the site will pass by an existing residence. This is our 104th meeting on this development. We have spent the last 2.5 years listening and engaging with our hometown stakeholders and gaining the endorsement of many organizations to bring this beautifully designed development to our city. The development blends into the natural environment and enhances the environmental building technology from solar to electric bike charging to the full installation of electric vehicle charging infrastructure for whatever the future demand may be, to silver cell bioretention, to 150 more trees, 55 more trees on the site post-construction than exists today, and the intended use of BAMCore in the buildings, as well as recycled water, because fortunately there's a giant purple pipe that runs down Los Gamos Drive, so we might as well tap into that. 23 months ago, we presented the neighborhood of Los Gamos to the Planning Commission in a public study session. The outcome of the meeting was that this site was the correct location for multifamily housing. I'm happy to report that we have met the goals outlined during our 2020 planning and DRB meetings, as well as our unanimous DRB approval on October 5th of this year. Whether it's the missing middle or workforce housing, it's simply a supply of housing that is needed. The neighborhood at Los Gamos proposes to use one of the last remaining large undeveloped parcels of land along the 101 corridor to provide beautiful housing that will be priced at the median price point, where all the below market units will be in the low income range and will be built throughout the entire development. More than 50% of the units will be 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom. In a small local market and community park will be walkably tie Los Gamos Drive to the neighborhoods off of Los Gamos Road, Terra Linda, and Northgate 1. And doing this at less than 19 units per acre and leaving much of the site undeveloped. I'll turn it over to Colin now to talk to you.
Good evening. I'm very pleased and honored to be able to help present this project to you all. I've been an affordable housing advocate for 30 years, and I think this project will make a significant impact on housing supply. This slide illustrates how far our site is from the main ridge line above us, nearly 600 feet at the closest point, and it increases as you go north and south. You can also see how the buildings are clustered to the lower end of the site and staggered to achieve more breaking up of the masses. Next. This is just a little closer view showing the articulation of the buildings. We have staggered the units and then staggered the masses within each building. The central village commons is easily accessible from all the buildings. The park, as Jeff had pointed out, is also easily accessible across the bridge and is open to both residents and the public. Next. This is the central plaza area, and the dashed areas indicate the level terraces that actually come off of each level as you step up the site, so that at the market, the lowest level, the market level, you have the lowest terrace. You can walk right out to it. At the next level, the community center level, you have the next terrace up. And at the top, you've got the plaza and the grassed areas for community meetings and gatherings and so forth. One thing that we wanted to emphasize is the sustainability aspects of this project. We have used many tools, wide overhangs at roof eaves, sunshades at all the windows, solar panels at all units. As Chris mentioned, electric vehicle charging stations, recycled water for irrigation, dual plumbing systems. We are looking very strongly at Bamcor, which is a bamboo product made from rapidly renewable resources that is both structural and very, very fireproof. Large cantilevered exterior decks that shade the units below, cool roofs, double glazing, bicycle parking, energy efficient heating and cooling, and light pollution reduction and shielded fixtures. So all of those will be incorporated in our design. Next slide, please. This just again is a close-up of one of the buildings to show the high level of articulation. Next. One of the requests of the design review board was to darken the color palette. This is a revised elevation showing exactly that. As you can see, we've got some very muted colors, and the upper level, which steps back, has been painted this charcoal color that you see in the background. Next. This is our revised color board. We're using a variety of materials. On the left, you see three examples of the hardy plank siding that we'll be using either as lap siding or board and batten. Then there's 4 colors of stucco. And then on the right, you see colors that we will be using for the trim. And at the very bottom right, the roofing, which is a charcoal gray composition shingle. Next. As Jeff pointed out, this slide points out how we have tried to adhere closely to the Hillside guidelines by stepping our massing up the hill. It's kind of an unusual section. Most buildings come straight across. What we've done is taken the back row and pushed it up, which allows us to get storage and mechanical systems underneath and a large, wide open parking area below. Next. And I will now turn it over to Shilpa.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, everyone. The design for this property revolved around the site's natural beauty, topography, and magnificent views of the bay. Through careful siting of each building, we've created a framework of common area spaces that support and reinforce a lively and socially interactive neighborhood. Buildings like you see here are tucked into the hillside to reduce the overall scale as viewed from Las Gamas or 101. This is the entry of to the neighborhood off of Las Gamas Drive. As you peel off of Las Gamos, you're greeted by a series of terraced open spaces with the tree canopy along the ridgeline extending from the top of the hill to the neighborhood entry. The project has two major components. Jeff has done a great job of explaining those, but I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of an overview. We have the South Recreational area, which is the large neighborhood park, and to the north is the residential core. The two ephemeral drainage courses to the north and the south of the site are left in their natural condition. The section of the loop road between the two tiers of the buildings provide a relatively flat plaza space, what we are calling as the village commons for pedestrian use. It is set up so that the central space can be used by all individuals without creating a framework of ramps. Permeable pavers at the plaza space reduce the overall impervious footprint of this development. At the same time, silver cell is proposed for stormwater management, which provides the uncompacted soils for the street trees to flourish. Minimizing impacts to the existing trees was one of the biggest driver of the site plan. You can see from this image, the way the buildings were located was we avoided most of the existing trees or the trees that were healthy. To achieve this, the buildings, the loop road, and the pedestrian paths were designed to respect the existing slopes and the character of the site. The design review board had a good suggestion to stagger or clump street trees to create a natural pattern. Now, in order to minimize grading, the heights of retaining walls, and reduce the impacts to existing vegetation, all the street trees are in linear planting beds adjacent to the road. The width of the linear planting bed definitely varies depending on its location on site, and we do not have adequate space to stagger trees without adversely affecting the retaining wall heights or the existing vegetation. Trees placed along the loop road are essential to create a wall of green between the first row of the buildings and Las Gamos Drive. Clumping these trees organically will only open up the views of these buildings from Las Gamos and reduce the total number of trees proposed for this site. And I also think one of the commissioners had a very good point regarding the 24-inch box trees. So we actually did a very detailed study and figured out that the 36-inch box trees would be a perfect size for this site that would help and that would grow into the eventual size that we expected to grow to, and also fit within the existing grades that were proposed for that site. Basically, the root ball would fit within the existing grades. Next slide. The fabric of this neighborhood is held together by the two buildings in the low tier, building 2 that Chris had mentioned, and the community center. Each of the tiers of the central space connects the two different levels of the community center. The scale and detailing of the central plaza space provides comfortable public living rooms and gathering spaces for multiple age groups and users. This is my favorite slide. This is the view from the community center looking east to San Pedro Mountain Open Space Reserve and the bay. The plaza space, as you can see, is composed of various scales of spaces, seating for intimate conversations, stepped lawn areas to read or gather, a covered area for board games or outdoor fitness, and a custom playground that is designed to teach young kids about the natural world around them. The DRB again had some questions regarding wall treatments. We are looking at various solutions, but the big one for us is planting would be used as the primary method of screening. We have some feature walls that have been deliberately designed into the common space areas. This is the image to the right, you can see, is a feature wall that would showcase one of the local artists. This is the South Park, and the trail system that's been proposed for the South Park and the playground area take advantage of the slopes and the existing trees. We are using soil cement that follow the existing topography and provide the passive and active recreational options for both the neighborhood as well as for the residences of this community. The playground itself takes advantage of the natural slope, similar to what you see here on the top right-hand corner. Logs from on-site trees that are being removed will be used as natural climbing structures. This is the last slide, and is the view from 101 looking towards the neighborhood.
The neighborhood Los Gamos perfectly blends the need for housing with the beauty of San Rafael and Marin County, holding true to the values that as a lifelong resident of San Rafael, we cherish. The project is ready to be built to the highest standards upon approval of entitlements, bringing jobs, revenue, and sales tax generation to the city of San Rafael. The neighborhood Los Gamos is an example of what is possible for housing in San Rafael and Marin. And housing that is beautiful and that is intended for everyone. We ask tonight for the approval by you all, the Planning Commission of San Rafael, so that we are one step away from building the neighborhood at Los Gamos. We welcome your questions and we thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. All right, so this time we've already asked questions to staff. I want to see if there are any clarifying questions directed towards the applicant or the applicant team.
Mr. Could I speak? Sorry. I just realized my camera was off and I'm not sure why it's not coming on in case that's an issue.
That's not an issue, no worries.
Thanks.
Okay, if no questions of clarification from commissioners, Leslie, we'll hop over to public comments.
Yes, thank you. And somehow I thought, excuse me, I don't know what happened when I changed you to a panelist. Something didn't quite happen correctly. So that, I think I did something error. But anyway, so if you wish to speak on this item and you are phoning in, please dial *9 to raise your hand. And if you are otherwise in Zoom, please use the raise a hand icon located at the bottom of the screen. And each of you will have 2 minutes. If you're getting close, I will let you wrap up after 2, but I will mute you if you are not wrapping up. Our first speaker is Andrew Ward, looks like from Marin YMCA.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me okay now.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thanks everybody. Thank you, Commission, for first being really sound on your Zoom skills. This is by far the best Zoom presentation and public hearing I've been a part of. I am the Executive Director of the Marin YMCA and additionally a more or less lifelong Marin County resident, and just wanted to be really clear that we support this project for the neighborhood at Los Gamos for a variety of reasons. First, from what you saw on all the schematics, we are the closest neighbors to this project. And as was mentioned, no other housing neighbors on this project. And so if not here, where can we do something like this? We do have offices, we have the Marin YMCA, and we have our most latest and greatest partner and neighbor on Los Gamos in Kaiser. And so this is a wonderful addition in our mind to Los Gamos. Does actually create the ability to have a true neighborhood on this street where wellness services through the Y and Kaiser are widely available, in walking in short travel distance to the greater Terralinda and San Rafael community are easily accessible. So this is a very welcome addition to that neighborhood, and the realization that this underutilized strip could actually be a neighborhood. So full support of that. I am more or less a lifelong resident of Marin, Marin education, including up through graduate school at what was used to be San Francisco Theological Seminary, and it's now the University of the Redlands. And so from a personal lens, as an executive of a nonprofit organization in the Y, in Marin County, on behalf of the Y, this at this time particularly gives us an opportunity to support the nonprofit community. And at a time when everything closed, nonprofits didn't. Schools closed, county services closed, businesses closed, nonprofits did not. And we are desperately in need of support.
Wrap up, Andrew. Thank you.
Sure. We're desperately needing support in this housing development. People on Los Gamos supports the Marin Y that provides childcare throughout Marin County. So please see this as an investment in your community at large and a win-win-win for housing, for nonprofits, and for residential support. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Next up is Michelle Hussein.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Good evening to you all. My name is Michelle Hussein, and I am the 2021 chair of the board of the San Rafael Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the San Rafael Chamber, which represents nearly 600 Marin County employers with over 26,000 employees, I want to express our support for the mixed-use project known as the neighborhood at Los Gamos. The creation of affordable workforce housing units has been a top priority for the San Rafael Chamber for several years already, and the Los Gamos project would provide 192 apartments, including 20 low-income units, which would increase our housing supply. As a community, we must listen to and support our employers that continue to report that they cannot recruit and retain enough employees to grow their businesses. Additional affordable workforce housing is crucial to our economic success. We know the facts. The high cost of home sales and rents has forced our workforce to live elsewhere and commute for hours every day to reach Marin employers. We can't continue like this. Not only is this project close to businesses, transit, and nearby amenities, it's an ideal site in size and location along the Highway 101 corridor to accommodate a substantial residential development. The project would also have a positive impact on our local economy and, of course, project-related fees to the city. The Chamber encourages you to take this rare opportunity to create the type of housing that our community badly needs and approve the neighborhood at Los Gamos project. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next up is Bob Pindell.
Thank you. I'm speaking for the Marin Environmental Housing Collaborative. We're a consortium of advocates who support projects and policies that advance affordable housing, as well as environmental integrity and social justice. This project demonstrates that increased height and density are the secret ingredients that promote housing equity and environmental sustainability. The height and density limits established under the current zoning would likely restrict development at this site to a few single-family homes, none of which would be affordable. The current low-density standard would likely result in disturbance to the entire property. The proposed general plan amendment and rezoning would avoid this waste by boosting housing opportunity at the same time minimizing site disturbance. It does this by allowing higher density to be concentrated at the lower and least sensitive portions of the site. Increased height and density are the keys to meeting our housing goals, especially affordable housing. We particularly appreciate that this project will provide 20 badly needed affordable units. We urge that you recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Next, we have Zach Zimmerman.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. First off, I want to thank everyone for their time tonight. And second off, my name is Zach Zimmerman. I'm a principal at BAMCorp. We are headquartered in Windsor, California. We are an award-winning structural system. We are primarily comprised of timber bamboo. It is a highly renewable resource that we have, and the building industry is faced with unbelievable hurdles in front of us. The building industry as a whole is 40% of the total of all greenhouse gas emissions in the world. So materials like BAMCorp help curb that. The pledge that we have seen from Chris Hart and the team on the Los Gamos project has been extraordinary in the fact that they are wanting to use state-of-the-art groundbreaking materials such as BAMCorp shows that they really are being stewardly not only to the local environment but to the global environment. Everyone at BAMCorp is in full support of the Los Gamos project.
Thank you, Zach. Next up is Jeff Bialik.
unmute. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Jeff Bialik, and I am on the steering committee of Housing Crisis Action Marin, which is recommending and encouraging approval of this project. I also serve on the affordable housing team of the Marin Organizing Committee and on the core team for the Marin Interfaith Council. Probably more appropriate to this discussion, I'm also a 26-year resident of San Rafael Park, and I live right up the hill from this project. San Rafael Park is also the neighborhood where this project is sited. I am speaking in favor of this project, and I urge the Commission to adopt these resolutions and to recommend approval to the Council. This project is well designed, appropriately sited on the site, and provides much needed family housing, including the 20 units of below market rate rental housing. My faith tradition teaches that the measure of any public policy or action is whether it adds to or detracts from the common good. This project adds to the common good. It addresses both the housing supply and the housing affordability crisis in our community. It also responds very smartly to our climate change challenges through its sustainable design and the potential to significantly reduce the number of automobiles commuting into the city and into the county every day. This is a great use of this property, and I encourage the Commission to say yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Next, we have Raydon Hirsch.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I just can't believe you're going to approve this. I'm sorry, but there's nowhere left for the deer at all. They've been coming down and trying to eat our lawns, our dead rose bushes. It's so sad that there already have been built from a half a block away, big homes up on the hill. There's nowhere left for the animals. The traffic is unbelievable. I live on Los Gamos Road. They already put up a noise wall because the traffic is so loud on Highway 101, and it just makes the noise bump up to the second level. If you have an upstairs unit, it's unbelievable. In the morning, I have to get up and close my window because of the smell of all the cars going by. I work at both buildings on Los Gamos, which are now the Kaiser building and the Sheriff's building. I worked on the second floor. Every time a big truck went by, the whole building would like shake. And we knew it were the trucks going by, even though there is a truck stop where they have to go by and get weighed, the truck weighing station. So that land is very unstable. And anyway, also the water, we can't even water except by hand and on Tuesdays. There's already a market at the end of Los Gamos, a great big Safeway, Northgate 1, tons of stuff. We don't need another market, and we certainly don't need another community center. There's two community centers, one at both the ending of Los Gamos. There's one there, Lucas Valley Community Center. There's Terra Linda Community Center. No one uses it unless they rent it out for like a Christmas party or something. It's ridiculous. I know they're showing all the beautiful, places where people can go sit in their little pagoda and all that. Forget it. I know you're following the money. I know a lot of people have put a lot of money.
Raydon, if you can please wrap up your comments.
All right. This just isn't right, because that hill, if they dig into that hill, it's just going to come down. I don't care what kind of retaining wall you build. It's not safe at all. They're asking for a lot of people's lives if they build something like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have one more speaker so far. The next speaker is Grace Garrity. And if you are in attendance and wish to speak, please use the raise a hand icon or *9 if you're phoning in. But this is Grace.
Yes, this is Grace Garrity. I live in Terra Linda. I'm also the Executive Director of Responsible Growth in Marin. And we do support the project. I do have a couple of questions regarding the sustainability. One of the speakers mentioned some sort of capturing and retaining of the rainwater and all. I was curious where that was going to go, and then my second question was, I understand that because of the affordable housing, is that going to be integrated with the market rate housing?
Do you have any more comments, Grace?
No, we would wish that it is integrated. It wasn't clear in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. And if anyone else, wishes to speak on this item, please raise your hand using the raise the hand icon found at the bottom of the screen, or dial *9. Ray Don, you've spoken already. If there is anyone else. I don't see anyone else wishing to speak.
Okay, in that case, I will close the public hearing. And just like our previous agenda item, we can start by just having a free-form discussion, at which point, I think once we've kind of said all of our points, I'll go to each individual commissioner for their parting thoughts, and then we'll jump into a motion and a vote.
I'll jump in, I guess. I do have some concerns. The parking ratio, as my understanding, is that the applicant is meeting the minimum that the state requires. Is that my understanding? And I think the numbers changed. So can someone help me out on that a little bit in terms of number of units and parking spaces?
So under state density bonus law, the state establishes maximum parking ratios that the city may require a project to comply with. Maximum, not minimum. So the most that the city can impose or require the applicant to provide in this case would be 246 spaces. They're providing 225. So it's consistent with the ratios provided for under state density bonus law. And state density bonus law in this case supersedes the city's requirements for residential parking. The project is only providing 12 parking spaces directly beneath the market. So the city considers that not in compliance with the parking ratios for commercial parking, which state density bonus law doesn't speak to. That's why they're seeking a concession from that parking standard, which is allowed under state density bonus law.
All right, I thank you for that. I guess my concern is that, having spent some time at the Y and when there are events, and I guess the biggest unknown being is what's going to happen to the neighboring properties in terms of the office unit to the south and whatever might be down the road to the north. I worry that people will be pushed down to hill to on-street parking, which I have a concern that down the road that might be inadequate. And the way the project is set up, there's very little chance additional parking will be created. So that's the concern that I have. And also from the developer, I didn't see any mention of solar and or EV charging stations. Anything There we go.
I'll jump in very briefly. They're proposing to install solar panels on all the buildings, basically, all the residential buildings. It's not possible on the commercial building because they're doing rooftop recreational areas. And I believe they're making accommodation, or they're planning to make accommodation for electric vehicle charging in the parking areas, but the applicant can speak to that.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you so much. This is Chris Hart, the applicant. Yeah, Commissioner Luminersky, the intention here is to put in the entire infrastructure for electrical vehicle charging. I have no idea what the demand will be in 2 years or 4 years or 5 years from an electrical vehicle charging station standpoint, but I want to have that infrastructure in there. So what we're talking about is simply popping a cap. We had talked at one point about the marketability of these relative to parking. We're trying to do everything we can do to encourage people and incent them to utilize mass transit as much as possible. We're kind of in all of the above, people here with this. So electric bike charging is important for us to have throughout the entire development, as well as, like I said, the vehicle charging.
Thank you.
I think follow up quickly on the solar. Now there's going to be solar on all of the rooftops, but what proportion of need do you think the solar will fill?
That's a great question. We're working with a company by the name of Ivy Consultants on that solar design. Again, also has it ties in Title 24, but we want to have as much solar capacity as possible on the site. I mean, that's really the simple answer. The intention of this development is to have a single plug for PG&E to come in and then charge back to the residents for their usage. And then therefore we're incented, we want obviously to have as much solar generation as possible. Does that answer your question?
Fair enough, yep.
Okay. All right, thank
you. You know what the solar capacity is? Like how many kilowatts you're able to get off the project? I mean, that was probably part of the planning package, correct?
I don't believe that was part of the planning package. Was it Colin or Riley or Shilpa? I know that we are in the process of that with Ivy to get that through. But like I said, it's as much as possible. What's the, other than the state mandated piece of it?
Yeah, the roofs are set up so there's a lot of room for panels. And it's just a matter of whoever designs the system has the room to put it there and generate a lot of electricity.
Yeah, just to be add a little clarity, the electrical design phase happens at the building permit phase, not at the planning phase. So knowing...
No, I mean, I'm an architect. I know, I mean, there are certain jurisdictions that require like solar ready or all solar. And you just have to like go through I'm thinking of just entitlements, like knowing how much percentage of kilowatts you need to produce. You know, you have pitched roofs. So obviously there's solar access, you're going to have shaded areas or areas that are unable to be used. So that's generally what I was asking for in a follow-up. So your energy consultant hasn't produced any preliminary information then for the solar capacity of the project?
No, not as of yet. Not as of yet. Like you said, it's about designing it to the maximum capacity possible. So there obviously are some studies being done relative to shade and sun. But as Riley mentioned as well, right? It's in San Rafael, it's the building permit side of the equation where that will have to be in place.
I can also say that the state regs now require installation of solar panels and solar capacity as a mandate before you can pull your permits. You can't just provide for it to be put in later. You've got to put it in now. So that's pretty tightly controlled by the state now.
If I may, you mentioned that you're going to try to encourage your residents as much as possible to use the mass transit. Can you quickly remind me of or us of the mass transit that serves the area?
Sure. There's a bus stop at Lucas Valley, which is 0.3 miles to the north, and then the Freitas Parkway bus station, 0.4 miles to the south, walking through, down Los Gamos Road there. That's one aspect of it. That gets people the proximity to it, but how do you get them to cross over the hump and actually buy the ticket? That's really the big issue. There are two things that we want to be doing here. One, in talking to TAM, there are what were Clipper cards are now something else, where there's possibly an opportunity there. We've been working with one of the gentlemen whose name is escaping me at this point in time, but a program there to get to utilize them so that we can take that off the table and incent them there. The other thing that we want to do is, while there's parking for street and there's parking for the market, the market's not going to be open at all hours. So that could be a good location for some additional visitor parking right down there. One thing too, though, is that our intention is to give this a shot and take some electric vehicles, purchase them, and use them as on-demand rental for people and see if that is something that will help encourage people. We have mass transit in Marin. It just isn't utilized that much. And so we're trying to find the incentive to make it easy and simple and take the objection that people have off the table.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's go one by one and just provide final thoughts. So keep in mind, we do have the four, actually, is it four? Actually, no, there were 6 items that are under consideration for us, right? No, 5, sorry. 5 items that are under consideration for us. So along those lines, I'll go down one by one. If we could provide some final thoughts, and then we can jump into potential resolutions, not resolutions, but potential motions for us to vote on. So I'll start with Commissioner Harris.
Thank you. I don't have any motions to potentially vote on necessarily, but I just wanted to throw my final thoughts on the parking issue. I do still see it as an issue. I think it has obviously been heavily researched and there's been some great rebuttals regarding it. But considering most of the units are 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom, that speaks to them being occupied by families or more people. And the public transportation thing just doesn't necessarily, it might not work for families with small children or people that might be occupying those units. So I just would want some additional consideration around the parking issue. I'm not completely satisfied with it. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. All right, Commissioner Haveman.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I support this project. I think it's a great project. We are clearly mandated to build more housing in Marin. I'm going to bemoan the loss of green space as much as anybody, but I think that this is the path that we need to head down. This is the intentionality behind this project is good. I have reservations about the parking, but that may be a short-term issue. I think as Jeff mentioned, and people who know me know that I think that autonomous vehicles are coming, so it might not be a problem in the long term, but short-term is a problem. Yeah, as I mentioned, I think it's a good project. I'm inclined to support it.
Okay, great. All right, Commissioner Lubomirski.
Thank you. This is a great location, great project. I think there have been some improvements made since we first saw it a year and a half ago. It's nice. I think it's going to serve our community well. Yeah, parking. Sadly, embarrassingly, we have 1 house and 4 cars right now, and they're used every day. So I'm not a good mass transit person, but yeah, no, I've supported 100%. I think the affordable housing component is outstanding. I think the darker palette is good. I want to see 2 traffic circles down on at the end of the street, though, on Lucas Valley. That's not going to happen. I love traffic circles. Anyway, I'm in support. There you go. You got me.
All right, thanks. Commissioner Mercado's not here. Commissioner Saudi?
Yeah, I first saw this project, I think about a year ago now, and was in support of it. I think it's cited really well. I think having, we talked about, I think when we last saw it, some of those trails being expanded and play areas for kids and families. So I really appreciate all the amenities within the site and a project that finally has housing for the middle market, as well as, we have affordability in here as well. And you guys aren't taking the payout to take care of that. So we desperately need this housing. I think it's well done. And I think it'll help really fill a gap in the market, especially, to help our businesses in San Rafael continue to grow and thrive. So I'm happy to see it. I do too have concerns about the housing, especially for the type of people that this is geared towards. So hopefully the Planning Commission takes a look at it, and we'll see where that goes. But I support the project.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Previtali is absent, and so I guess that leaves me. Yeah, I think I just did a quick search, just one interesting factoid. 83% of all land in Marin is classified as open space. Given our housing crisis, I understand the discomfort with losing open space, but I'll almost argue that we've allocated such an extent to open space that we've, created sort of a very difficult situation for ourselves with regards to finding land for addressing housing crisis. So there's always a balance that we have to be considered when we look and review these kinds of projects. With that in mind, staff, so this is a relatively complex resolution that we're kind of digging through. So I want to just make sure that we have everything clear. I think, was it Jeff? You had on the screen the 5 different components of the application for today. Do you mind putting that back on the screen if possible?
I'll see if I can, but let me just summarize. Basically, you have 3 resolutions to consider recommending to the City Council. The resolution on the mitigated negative declaration, the resolution on the general plan amendment and zone change, and then the resolution on the environmental design review permit and vesting tentative parcel map. Those are your 3 resolutions. They sort of go hand in hand. If you're uncomfortable with some aspect of the project, you can revise conditions or suggest that the project hearing be continued to give the applicant time to make revisions, or you can revise the project and approve it with those revisions, or you can deny the project. Those are sort of your options. Yeah, or recommend denial of the project, I should say.
Yeah.
Can I throw out that we just see how it goes? Maybe I'll make a motion that we approve and recommend going forward A through E, Articles A through E, and follow staff's recommendation on A through E, I think it is.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
Okay, so you'd like to make a motion on that?
Yes, please.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that motion, Commissioner Saudi.
Okay, cool. So discussion on this particular motion. Thoughts or concerns with these resolutions as is? Crickets. Okay. In that case, I'll ask staff to conduct a roll call on this.
Yeah, that's the strategy. Make it so complex that it's hard to ask any questions or pick at it. So anyway, yeah, thank you for everything. Commissioner Harris.
Aye.
Commissioner Hedman,
Yes.
Commissioner Lubomirski,
Yes.
Commissioner Saudi,
Yes.
and Chair Samouzi.
Yes. Okay, looks like we passed that one then. All right, thank you to the. Go ahead. Sorry, Leslie, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying we have tentatively scheduled this for the first council meeting in January, which is actually the third Monday, which I think is the 7th. Oh, it'll be the 18th because the 17th is housing. So that has not been confirmed by the city clerk yet. But for anyone in attendance, keep posted. It most likely will go to city council for final hearing on the 18th.
Okay, appreciate that.
Maybe
and
appeal, any appeals or any of the time frame and stuff like that? Do we not do that?
It's not for a recommendation, no.
Thanks.
Okay, so thank you to the applicants.
Thank you.
Yep, looks like your next stop is city council.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, next we move into the director's report.
Yes, so you all received a, Commissioner Lubomirski, if you didn't, let me know, an email from Planning Director Judici about the League of California Cities Planning Commissioners Academy. That's going to happen in March of this year in San Ramon, and I know a few of you have already responded with interest. So I will follow up with you about registration. I'm sure, you know, we will take care of everything for you, but we might need you to fill out forms or what have you. I'm not sure quite on the details, but that looks exciting. Maybe I'll join you. The other thing I want to say, this coming Monday at Council, the 20th, we are bringing, Community Development is bringing a resolution to the City Council to move forward with guidelines for objective standards for SB9 applications and for direction to follow up with an actual ordinance on SB9 applications. And just for clarification for anyone in attendance, SB9 is a new law that will allow ministerially for single family zoned properties that have a single home to have a by right, meaning ministerial approval of a duplex, as well as by right lot split, urban lot split, with that second lot also having a duplex. So state law does allow municipalities to impose certain standards, such as if you're doing the lot split, to have access to the right of way. So we are moving forward with some guidelines that are being conservative and then getting input from council on when we move forward with the resolution to make sure that whatever we move forward is what the city would like. So if you're interested, that will be Monday. And that's really all I have. I did want to say that, what else? Oh, this is our last meeting for the year. So our next meeting will be January 11th. So the next one, you'll get an official cancellation for, I don't even know if there's why we have one scheduled on the 28th. We're officially closed. But anyway, so I just wanted to wish you all a very happy holiday season and a very happy new year. And as always, I'm always available if you have any questions, want to follow up, want to just debrief on anything. Just feel free to phone me, to email me. So, and that is my report.
So just not on Christmas Day, right?
You know, things aren't really much fun when you don't have kids, so little kids, I should say. All right, I mean.
Leslie, one thing that did come up last week when we were at the reception is chair and vice chair for next year. Yeah. So are we going to be deciding on that on the 11th?
Yes. So thank you for bringing that up. I should have brought that up as well. We will take nominations for chair and vice chair. If you're interested in it for yourself, feel free to nominate yourself. If you're interested for someone else, you might want to touch base with them to make sure that you're not putting them on the spot. So that will be exciting. And we should hopefully have an actual calendar date. I already made a production calendar of what I assume will be our meeting dates for next year. But that will also be officially part of that packet too, like adoption of dates. So that's why I'm letting you know ahead of time that January 11th we are on.
All right. Exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have I heard that we have a busy year next year, but is January, do you think we're going to get to both dates, the 25th and the 11th? Are there a lot of things coming through, you think?
The 11th will be a busy, one item got continued off of this, which was unfortunate because this was going to be a busier, heftier schedule. So I had postponed 2 items to the 11th. One was the Tuscornia Marsh project that you were all very excited to see again. So that is coming forward. What else is coming forward is the scoping meeting for the North Gate environmental impact report. And another one is a use permit for a temporary environmental design for, I think, the sanitation district. So I haven't read the staff report, so I apologize, but I don't know the details of that. So there's 3 items, probably should go rather quickly. I mean, a media agenda, but nothing too controversial.
Yeah, I also have a question about the temporary shelter that we looked at in the canal. And I think that had like a year-long run, and then we were going to revisit that. Is that coming up? Because I think last year we reviewed it and approved it for 1 year to get ready for the winter season. And, I drive by it here and there. And then obviously with the rain this week, it's hard not to think about the amount of beds that are available. But I was just wondering if there was any, if that's going to come back to us at all, if there's any status on that project.
So very honestly, this is the first I heard of it. So thank you for bringing it up, and I will look into that and have an update for you all, because that would be important if it needs to come back for sure.
Great.
Was that in the canal, or was that further north?
It was in the canal. It was like an office building. I know what the road is.
It was on
right across.
I think it was on Kerner, wasn't it?
It's on Kerner, yeah. Next to Alcohol Justice. Remember that one? And they were taking the 2nd floor, and there are now more services outside of it. And it, I go to Target and my daughters go to gymnastics near there. So I'll drive by it pretty often, and it looks like all the concerns that were raised in the meeting don't seem to be an issue when I drive by. But who knows? And it's just really there temporarily, right? And I think what we said, I think there were some neighbor concerns, and we said that, after a year, if it needed to be extended, that we should have a public forum where that was extended so that there's just transparency around it.
Thank you. No, I'll definitely look into that.
Okay. Any PC members have any communication or comments?
I don't have any communication, but I'm stepping down, so this will be my last meeting.
Really?
Well, I don't know. You serve at the pleasure, and there's no more pleasure. So, it's been a good time, and I've enjoyed working with you guys. So I will still be around. I don't know what else. Maybe some with the county, who knows? But 10-year run, you guys got a ways to go before you get there.
Yeah. You're on the water district? You're on something else, right?
My ass handed to me on that one.
Oh, really?
Fortunately, I am not on the water.
Oh, okay.
Go desal. but yeah, no. So
No.
I'm doing some other things, but
Well,
not,
you
not the
know,
water
I'm
district.
sure you're keeping your.
Thank you for bringing that back. I'd almost forgot about it, but
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
But it's been really good having you on the commission because you always bring like a lightness and you're able to deliver, you know, your opinion so graciously, unlike me.
Thank you guys. It's been fun, and who
It's
knows
been
what
fun.
I might be some in the county, so that's might be the next thing. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, now you have all your big fancy fields and stuff that you're like playing up there all day.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Commissioner Lubomirski, our intersection was brief, but it's been a pleasure, and just thank you for your service. I know that sounds cheesy, but I do mean that. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if nothing
All
else. Hope everybody has a really great holiday. This is, I know, a very packed season, so hopefully everything is going well and everyone's families are doing well. And looking forward to the next year.
Right back at you and to everybody as well. Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
You well.
Meeting's adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Good night.